Welcome to the Find My Catalyst podcast. We all have problems we're looking to solve, and we know that there are solutions out there, but we struggle with this. How do we find the solution? Where does the nudge come from that helps us take the next step and start solving tough problems? The intention of this podcast is to help you find your catalyst and take that next step. I'm Mike Simmons. I am the founder of Catalyst Sale, and I have my friend, Jeff Noel, on here for the third Noel. We're doing this a couple of days later. As you know, this is an unedited version of the podcast. We'll push this live just after our conversation. Jeff, how are you doing?
Mike, if I was doing any better, I'd be you.
That is awesome. Jeff, this is one of the reasons why I love talking to you. Every time I walk away from a conversation, I'm either thinking differently about something or feeling better about something. So you have an impact on me every time we have a conversation. So thank you.
You're welcome. It's a two-way street, Mike. Two-way street.
A lot of times, Jeff and I will talk to each other. I'll be walking through the neighborhood. He'll be walking through the neighborhood. And periodically, we'll describe what we're hearing. And sometimes Jeff will hear something on my end and ask a question about it. And I wasn't even paying attention to it, but usually it'll be birds or something in the background. Jeff, we are just about ready to kick off 2022. And I wanted to throw a couple of words out at you just to hear your thoughts. What immediately comes to mind when you hear these words? What immediately comes to mind when you hear the word mindset?
Mindset is a way of thinking. It's your attitude. To me, mindset is attitude, and attitude is, I think somebody asked me in the things that I talk about, podcast about, speak about, write about, mind, body, spirit, work, and home, which of those five is the most important? I think mindset, or our attitude, is the single most important aspect of our being, because from our thoughts, everything else emanates, and our thoughts are the one thing that we can control. We can't control the environment. We can't control other people. We can't control our customers. We can't control a lot of things, but we can choose with our mindset to see problems as opportunities or challenges or problems.
Jeff, what happens
every thought we have?
Yeah, what happens if someone says, Jeff, I hear you say that I can control this, but I can't. I continue to fall into the trap of this happens to me. This is a problem that why am I always faced with these problems rather than a challenge that's there to overcome? What if someone has fallen into that trap of not believing that they have control?
They're gonna perish. You know, this, I didn't make this up. I read a book a long time ago called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, and he was interviewing people like Viktor Frankl, or studied people like Viktor Frankl, who was in the Nazi German concentration camp. And what he saw was the people that couldn't, it was a miserable, you know, it was hell on earth, right? And the only thing that they could control while they were in there is what they thought about, and how they thought about it. And he said the people that survived had a positive outlook. They had hope, they had optimism in spite of their miserable, horrific, hellish conditions. They hung on to something, and those that didn't, unfortunately, didn't make it. And I don't mean to go off the deep end, but I think about, you know, gosh, I'm coming up almost on the 20th anniversary of not drinking. And at some point in my life, I had to choose to say every day or not at all. And I went from every day to not at all. I had to change my thoughts. I said, I'm not at all. And it was one day at a time. And that's what this mindset sort of reframing or resetting or whatever could be for anyone, is that it's one day at a time. It's one decision at a time. And like anything else, you got to do the reps. So anybody that says that they can't, I understand it, because I felt that way for a long time. And probably the secret hack is finding out why your motivation has to be so powerful that staying where you are with your mindset, if you want to have a growth mindset and you don't think you do, staying where you are is more painful than changing. You've got to, changing has to be less painful than staying where you are.
Where do you find that motivation to keep going, to keep moving forward? And I know you talked a bit about pain, but where do you find your motivation today to assist with decision making, to help keep you focused, to help keep you, I'll say it again, moving forward?
You know, it's been a lifetime journey, and which just reminded me, Mike, that I didn't go from drinking every day to 20 years without a single drop. It took me 20 years to get to 20 years. And in that journey of 20 years, it happened one day at a time. I'm in my 60s. I'm in my 401k is at a place where it wasn't 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So everything I'm talking about, it's a lifetime journey of making these decisions, of getting your habits in a place where you default to the best choice for you at the time. And I think, Mike, the real catalyst of this was when I became a father. So prior to that, my motivation was just, how do I structure my life so I can have a good time and do good work at Disney? And when I became a father, I'm like, having a good time is important, but it's not first anymore. It is, how do I become a role model? How do I become an example for how to live a vibrant life? And that's my motivation, I suppose, is to be an example, a role model.
As you're going through this, one of the things that comes to mind is holding yourself accountable to the thing that you've said you're going to do. So I'm going to stop drinking. I'm not going to drink another drop. And then 20 years later, you've gone 20 years. How do you think about accountability, personal accountability, as you go through this journey while you're making this change to overcome a pain that either exists already or will exist if you don't shift? So how do you think about accountability from a personal perspective?
Wow, I think it's kind of like snowflakes. We're all human beings. We're all snowflakes, but we're all cut from the same cloth, right? But each snowflake is different. Each human being is different. So you have to find your own way. And for me, man, Mike, I can't tell you how many books I've read in my lifetime and how many quotes I have consumed in my lifetime. And I'd say, you got to, whatever fuel you use, quotes were a big thing for me. Books were a big thing for me. That sort of motivational, inspirational, aspirational sort of thing, that worked for me for decades. And then when I became a father, I started writing shortly after that. And now this is not convoluted.
It's good. What I really like is that piece around fuel, like finding the fuel. And what Jeff can't see, because we both have our video off it, as he says some things, I'm putting some notes up on a whiteboard, and I'll share them with him when we turn the mics off. But you talk about fuel. Where does that fuel? Where does that fuel? How does that fuel help from a personal accountability perspective?
All right. So fuel is everything. So I'm gonna reframe this. I'm gonna frame it up this way: is every single snowflake, every single person, while we're all different, we all need an endless amount of fuel. Fuel is motivation. How you get that motivation is up to you. And the analogy I make, Mike, is I'm a runner. And if this was a fitness episode, we were talking about how do you work on your cardio. I would talk about running, and it would sound like to the listener that I'm recommending running. I'm not recommending running. I like running because it's portable. You don't need, when I travel, it's easy to do and you can do it anywhere. And I like it, but I wouldn't say you should be a runner. So I'm not saying that you need to read books or consume quotes. What I am saying though, in summary, is you've got to find a million ways to stay motivated. Motivation is like a fire. If you don't continue to add fuel to it, it's going to go out. And you can restart the fire, but it's much easier to rekindle the fire than to have to restart it. Rekindling meaning that, if you've ever been outside camping overnight and you got in your tent at night after spending the evening and by the campfire and so on, you wake up in the morning, and if you stir the fire a little bit, those embers that are in there, and put some dry wood on there, it'll restart. But if you wait until lunchtime to try and do that, it's probably going to be completely out. You can't go too long without adding fuel to your fire.
Jeff, as always, these are awesome discussions. A couple of key takeaways from me as you've talked through it. One, the importance of fuel. Two, the importance of finding that fuel. Three, the importance of paying attention to things so that you are adding that fuel before the fire goes out. As you go through this process of, one, you're thinking about a pain that's out there that you are looking to solve for, and you're concerned about what it takes to overcome it, go out there and read a book like Man's Search for Meaning, which is the Viktor Frankl book that Jeff was talking about. Jeff, is there anything else you'd like to share with folks as they get ready for the wrap up of this year and the kickoff of the new year?
I'm a big proponent, Mike, of personal vibrancy, which is the interconnectedness between our mind, our body, and our spirit, right? We have a brain, we think, we have a heart, we feel, we have a body, we move, and we work, and we make a contribution to society, and we dwell somewhere. We have a home. So mind, body, spirit, work, and home. And my niece, she's in her mid 30s, and she's got 3 children, and she's a stay-at-home mom. And you'd say, well, she doesn't work. Well, where does her paycheck come from? Her contribution to the family unit is allowing her husband to do what he needs to do, and she cares for the 3 children. So while she is not going to get a W-2 in January, she is completely working. So mind, body, spirit, work, and home. Gosh, you can't neglect any of them. Let's take work. You should really feel like, for whatever it is that you're doing, you should be really, really good at it. And do it in an artful way that people, when they interact with you, they go, wow, she was really nice, or that was remarkable. He was really friendly, or that was very insightful, or that thing just really works. Be really organized at home, like prioritize your priorities. That's a big challenge, is we often have priorities, but we don't have our priorities prioritized. That's a pro tip. And then, be the most positive person, be the healthiest person that you know, and have walk with the most peace and contentment for your spirit, and that again is chipping away at anger, chipping away at impatience, chipping away at holding on to things that you can't control, learning to surrender. And it's like if you plant a little tree in your yard, it's not going to be, from a tiny acorn, a mighty oak does grow. I think people just really should step back and go, what seeds am I planting, and how am I going to tend to it, and visualize a future that's not only better than now, but much better than now.
Jeff, you are absolutely awesome. If you're out there and anybody who's out there listening to this, if you set a goal to read 20 books this year and you're sitting on 19 and you're looking for the 20th, pick up Midlife Celebration. You can finish it between now and the end of the year. You might even pick it up, or you might be able to finish it between now and the end of the day. It is that quick of a read, and it is that powerful of a read. We'll include links in the show notes. Jeff, is there any place else that you'd like to send folks beyond me sending them to your book?
I post generally short and pithy tweets a couple times a day. I've got like 26,000 tweets since 2009. I stopped consuming quotes, Mike, and now I start thinking about how do I want to frame up the most important things? How would I say it? I would say that was one of the biggest turning points in my life when I still read like a boss, but I also write like a boss. And I think every listener, when you start to think about a lot of people that we follow, we get their A reel, we get their highlights, we get the thing that they're really good at. And we forget that they probably struggle with some of the other things in their life, but we dismiss it. And I think, man, that fear of missing out, the fear of, the crutch of comparison, and the fear of trusting our own, being unwilling to make mistakes, right? Do the reps. If something's not working for you, try a different way and see if it makes it better. If it doesn't, do it a different way or stop doing it. But don't stop, just stop doing it that way and do it a different way. The road to excellence, here's my final thought. The road to excellence has no finish line, and then do the reps.
Jeff, thank you. If you know of anybody that would find value out of this conversation, please share this episode with them. Let Jeff and I know via Twitter. Sales is a thinking process. Life is a thinking process. Business is a thinking process. How are you thinking differently about yours?